Hello, this is MC1 Gamer, and I am doing a response video to a number of the videos that have come out today regarding a lot around Nagash. And of course it's evolved into discussions about the new Kane book, about being a douche, and I don't understand, Mittieriim, why you have to use that word. It just seems so derogatory. But there's a number of things that people have been discussing, mostly revolving around end times. And you know, I know some of this stuff is a thought exercise, and you know, but a lot of this leaves a bad taste in my mouth, because while people say that this is their opinion, play out the way you want, there's still a whole lot of judgment going on, and I think that judgment is really bad for the game, even more so than what people's opinions are about what they think is bad for the game. That immediate judgment on how you play and imposing what you think your best way of playing is, and using the unfun rule to try and diminish other people's styles of play. Now, let me preface this by saying I like difficult play. I like tough play, but I'm not Mr. GT. I'm not going to a million tournaments. I go to some tournaments and I play lots of campaigns, and I enjoy both styles. I enjoy the fun storyline style that just has interesting cohesion between the various games, a progression, and that's one of the things why I really enjoy, Josh, your series of stories on your channel with your friends, the boys, and I think I find that very entertaining. But it's one style of play, and one of the things that bother me is I think that there's kind of hypocrisy in some of the things you say, and I think some of it's a little bit derogatory. You do say that that you don't be a douche, you know, don't be a dick. Frankly, playing in a particular way doesn't make you a dick. Being a dick makes you a dick. If you go to a game and you're an asshole to your opponent, it's not about what you put on the board and necessarily the strategy that you use. And I mentioned this when I was trying to get this across to William Paige. But if you're being intelligent and you're utilizing your strategy to try and achieve a goal, which is whatever the scenario objective is, to try to win, that doesn't make you a douche. Being a douche in the game makes you a douche. Being an unfun person makes you a douche. Not being able to laugh and joke. If something bad happens to your character, not being able to laugh at it. You know, I look at Lord Tremendous and something bad happens to his vampire lord, and it gets eaten just recently, for example, by its own zombie dragon. I'm not the kind of person that says he's a cheeseball because he brought a vampire lord tooled up with huge magic, max points for all his vampire gifts, threw him on a zombie dragon. He's a douche. He's a douche for doing that, for taking all the best parts of Tomb Kings and vampire counts and putting it into an Undead Legions list. I don't think that's being a douche. I think laughing at himself because something bad happened to it and having a good sense of humor makes him kind of cool. And I don't think that my putting Nagash in the back when facing cannons or Banner of the World Dragon or Demon Prince or double slams and using the rule of bouncing cannons to protect my 1,000-point character is being a douche, and I think that's insulting that you would say something along those lines. You want to call somebody a douche who in the course of play has a terrible attitude and is making the game unfun? I can see that. Using the rules is not unfun, and let me also expand upon this. It's not just because you're using the rules, it's using the rules as all of you agree. If you agree that this is how you want to play, if this is the style of play that you and your opponent want to play, and you're both on the same page, there's no argument about what is fun and what is unfun. No one likes to lose. That's not fun. I prefer, though, to have a fun game where it comes down to the wire. It's as close as possible. Whether I win or lose, I have a fun time. I've had more fun games coming right up to the last roll of the game, not knowing whether I would win or lose. Certainly much more fun than any game that I've steamrolled. And I'm a pretty competent player, but I'm not the best player in my area, by far not the best player that's on these YouTube channels. But you know, when I've steamrolled people, and we've called the games midway. There's a lot of the recent games that I've called and have been called on me because, you know what, it's a foregone conclusion what's going to happen, so why torture somebody? You know, it was fun up until a point, now we know who's going to win, so let's end the game and start over, whether it's a tournament or a local game. And that's fine, but, you know, to grumble and complain about, you know, something's overpowered, look, let me make something really clear. There's a lot of unbalance in this game. If you don't think that's the case, you're all fooling yourself. Think about it, just everybody reflect for a minute about some army that you faced with some character or monster or unit that you just were terrified of, or that you knew was going to mulch what you had on your table. Some casting ability, whether it's the High Elves, with the Book of Hoeth and a Dispel Scroll, and all of the shenanigans they can pose, plus having the Banner of the World Dragon on a unit of White Lions, and I could go on and on. There's so many of them. How many times have I faced the Fellblade in every single Skaven list? You know, there's supposed to be one Fellblade, and it seems like every friggin' unit, every little detachment of the High Elves has a Banner of the World Dragon. Every single there's a Demon Prince in every single Chaos Warriors army. Every single one. And he's a level 4 to death, and he's purple sunning down your lines and wrecking your day. Is he taking a risk any less than, say, an Undead Legions list with Nagash? No. He isn't, because a cannon's going to finish him off. He's going to be a ton of points. He was probably the Nagash of before the end times. That was what probably was the most close thing to Nagash. Lots of points, lots of power, huge offensive capability if you got into hand-to-hand, and a lot of spell power. And I don't really hear a lot of people bitching about Demon Princes. Maybe Mittieriim you do, maybe you do, Josh, but that's you. You know, you play, and again, look, you keep throwing out that you're not saying it to me, but when you call somebody who plays a specific style a douche, and I'm playing that specific style, and that's the conversation that's being had about that style, it's kind of hard not to feel that you're directing this at me. But, you know, and I say this because I have a great deal of respect for you. I think you're a very smart guy. I think you're very creative. But I think that you're hypocritical in some respects. I do think that you know, I respect that you stick to your guns and in your feelings about this stuff, Mitt. But, you know, it's not fair to go and say, hey, you got to play the way I like to play. You know, because I could say, hey, you're a Care Bear. You know, you're a pushover. You're a soft player. You're not a tough player. But I don't think that's the case. I think you have a particular style that you enjoy, and you're good at it. It's a story-based style, and you self-comp, and that's fine. I believe that. I have no doubt that if you like playing hardcore, that you'd be a very good hardcore player. That if you played with the utmost power of your army, you'd be a very good player. You have an analytical mind, and you're a creative person, and you need both of those things to be good in Warhammer. But to judge people and say you're being a douche for maximizing the potential of an army is not fair. The personality you bring to the table, how you handle your wins, and even more so your losses, is whether or not you're a douche or a dick or whatever, and how you make something unfun. So let me just put that aside, all right? And I hope you can absorb that and understand that, because I don't agree with you that just because I or other people play in a specific way, that makes that we should be cast in a specific judgment. It's not appropriate. And I say the same thing. Tried to say the same thing to William Paige, who, you know, he's playing the #1 William. You're playing the #1 ranked army in all of Warhammer. All right, but yet you're casting judgments on people on whether or not they're a certain type of a person. You wouldn't use the word yourself, but you were agreeing basically with other people that were on Anthony from the Sustainable Center's video and supporting their notions, and I was making a comment against that. And we seem to like kind of clash, which kind of seems crazy because, you know, for the most part, I agree with your points of view. I like our little sparring sessions. I think it's kind of funny. But, you know, I don't understand how you could defend something like that. You're playing one of the toughest armies in the game. So why are you saying everybody should play Care Bear style? I don't get it. You know, you want to play that way, fine. But you throw out a whole unit of Witch Elves with the Cauldron, and a bunch of Brolocks, a bunch of Warlock units. Those are some of the most broken units in the game. You know, even the Executioners. I mean, come on. You know, your army is top notch. So it's easy for you to go and say, just like a Warriors of Chaos player, to say, oh, you know, it's not broken, I'm playing it. A lot of these guys who are complaining about Nagash, and before even they were complaining about Nagash, they were just complaining about Undead Legions or End Times in general. You know, suddenly they got a little quiet when the Warriors of Chaos book, when the Legions of Chaos book, Glotkin, came out. And I think less people are probably going to do the same thing with the Kane book. You know, you're going to hear a little bit of diminishing, yet people still go back to the things that are not in their play style or not in the armies that they play, and they want to go and rip into it. And I'm kind of tired of it. I really am. You know, I'm not pointing specifically at you, William. I'm just trying to establish and express what my feelings are about this. I've had this conversation with Lord Tremendous. I've had this conversation with Anthony at the Sustainable Center. I've talked about it in videos, and I've talked about it on my posts. And you know, I can be pretty abrasive in those comments, but I just don't think that that's what's causing the unfun. Let's take a look at some of the things that Anthony said. You know, and I wrote up a couple of bullets here so I don't lose my train of thought, because you know, these videos, they can be called rant videos or whatever, but you know, we want to still try to be organized. Look, I know that Anthony was performing a thought exercise. I was there at the game the other day where we played, and we had a conversation about this afterwards, so I'm well aware of it. I just was a little surprised in the direction that he went with it, talking about the commonality or the repetition of people playing Nagash, and how he felt that was unfun. I can see in a singular game situation how somebody could say, hey, you know, Nagash is too overpowered if you're not prepared for him. And that's a legitimate conversation to have. But I don't understand where the topic came up of if people are bringing it constantly to the gaming table or to the local gaming club, and somebody brings up the idea of like a pickup game. I think it was Anthony who first mentioned it, and other of his viewers were commenting about it. Where is that happening? When is that happening? Anthony posted something very valid today, and he explained himself, and I appreciate that he did so, because I didn't really think about it. I haven't gone to any GTs. I've gone to local tournaments over the past year or so, and when I used to play, I mean, I took almost 2 decades off from the game. I took about 15 years off from the game, which really dates me. I did a lot of tournaments. I did some pretty big tournaments. They weren't called GTs then. I mean, GW was much more involved in this stuff then. But even then, you know, people played hardcore. When you go to a tournament, it's hardcore, and everybody knows what you're bringing. Daemonic Orchid made that comment earlier today with his video. You know, when you're going to a tournament, people should know that, you know, based on the rules, what the rules are. If you're going to a tournament, it's not like a local game. It's not like a pickup game, and it's not like a campaign game. Okay, it's not like a group of guys like, you know, like you, Mitt, and the boys, where you guys have an understanding already. You have your own group, and if you have a local group with an understanding, that there's almost like a telepathy involved there. You kind of already understand the limits that you can embark upon with the dirty stuff, the harsh stuff, the really tough and overpowered stuff. I would never bring Nagash to a local pickup game and just plop him out on the table with somebody that I was set up with, whether I knew that person or not. There's an unwritten contract between players, and this is where the douche factor comes in, okay? There's an unwritten rule, there's an unwritten contract that you both discuss, even if it's just a flippant comment, that, you know, what kind of a game you're playing. You know, how hard you're going to go. I usually know this stuff before I walk in the door at a local game day or evening, and I'll have several options on lists just to make sure if I play somebody, I want to maybe try up a different list. They're not always the toughest, most extreme, crazy lists that I can bring. Some of them are. Depends on who I'm playing. There's a guy at the local store that I'm still waiting to play with who plays Chaos Dwarves. He's a tough player. I played him a couple times with his dwarves, and we've had some really close and really good games. But I told him, I said, I want to play Chaos Dwarves. I hear they're rough. I've never played them. Bring me the toughest list you have, and I'll do the same. Let's see how it goes. And I think that that's because both of us agreed to that point, and that's in our comfort zone. If there was another player who's much softer and just doesn't like the idea of bringing all the crazy, batshit crazy stuff, or maybe he doesn't even have those models, and I'm going to go softer, not because I'm a better player than him, maybe I'm more experienced with the stuff I have. Maybe I have a bigger tool set with models than he does. Who knows? All right, but I'm gonna try and cater to the person I'm playing, and I'm sure they're gonna do the same to me. And if you don't agree, you don't play. Because if you get into a game, you're spending 3, 4, sometimes 5 hours. Just you're stuck with that person unless within the game, unless you want to finish the game and walk away and take your kickball and go home. But if you're involved in that game, it's an intimate scenario, and you want to be able to maximize the fun. So just to go back where it's kind of like a lot of this really started. I mean, look, these series of videos are kind of a bridge from previous videos where people were ripping into end times and people had to defend themselves. Lord Tremendous, going on a rant and blew up about a lot of people's comments about comp and the end times in general, giving him shit. I've gotten that as well, and I've decided to stay away from certain forums not because I'm getting attacked, but because I get sucked into the conversation, and then that pulls me into that discussion, which turns into an argument and often a flame fest. It's very similar to what's going on now, but of course, I don't look at this as a flame fest. I look at this as a dialogue. Just less, hopefully, use of the word douche, and less judgment on people's play styles. But, going back to Ant's comment, look, we talked about, after we played a particular game with Nagash, I mean, I didn't really want to talk about it in that respect, because I wanted to kind of, unleash the videos, unveil the videos, and have the experience speak for itself so that people didn't know how it turned out. Now, Ant's a much better player than I am. Anthony has been playing for longer collective time. I mean, I've played a lot of Warhammer over my tenure as a Warhammer player, but Anthony has much more recent play at a far higher level. I've learned a lot about the game before I even met the guy from watching his videos, including a number of you guys who I've watched before I really started, putting myself out there on YouTube and even, going to tournaments again. Just trying to get back into the swing of what was Warhammer. How is it played? What are the strengths and weaknesses? What are the rules? And Anthony was one of those guys among many others. Once Bitten, Malorian, may he rest in peace, among many, many other guys. Luke Davis. I mean, there's so many. I just absorbed so many videos from so many people, but Anthony was one of them. And I got lucky that he was within reasonable driving distance, and we could meet up. And he was cool enough to go and entertain me coming over or meeting up and playing some games. And I thank him for that every time I meet up with him, because I think it's awesome. It's been an education in Warhammer. He's a better player than me. I know that. In some of the scenarios we played, I've come out on top because the scenarios are scenarios, and maybe whether he's playing hard or he's just throws out a fluffy list, or he just throws a flippant list together, or maybe the scenario was stacked in my favor, or maybe I won that game. Maybe that game I won. You can't be perfect at how good you are. But I would say 99 times out of 100 in a regular tournament scenario, he's gonna beat me, all things considered. I'd like to think maybe not quite that much, but just given the experience and the results he's had in the tournament scene, I don't doubt it. He plays hardcore. I play hardcore. I like playing tough. I like playing a rough list. I don't find it unfun. I was very surprised to find out that he didn't enjoy himself in the game. But then again, if you're getting steamrolled in a game, it's going to be downhill for you. You're not going to enjoy yourself. It's not going to be fun. And I'm not judging or questioning his reasons for saying so. I think that he was thinking about, hey, this could have been a much more fun experience. It wasn't. It was very one-sided. I could have taken a better list to counter that. And in doing so, then Mitch wouldn't have had fun. Then the guy on the other side of the table would have been miserable. And he said so, and he was right. He said, what if I took 6 or 8 war machines, and I just blew Nagash off the table in turn 1 or 2? And I agreed with him. I told him straight up. I said, look, I took this to the tournament, and I thought that I wasn't going to make one game out of turn 2, out of the entire tournament. And, that didn't necessarily happen, at least up until, the first 2 games. I'm not going to give away what happens in the 3rd game. But, that's entirely possible. People took tough lists, and some of them took lots of cannons, and some of them took fewer cannons, and some of them took whatever army they decided to bring, and they brought tough lists. So I didn't get cannoned off the table by my by the Skaven opponent. I got lucky. It could have happened. It absolutely could happen. It could have happened in my game with Anthony. He came close to it. It's just the way the dice fall. But it turned out that the game turned in a specific direction, And it was pretty obvious that there was no way that he was going to win. And I hate to give away the ending because I wanted to kind of post the video. I was hoping, he said he was going to post his too. And the impetus behind it was that, we went to the same tournament, and he kind of called me out before the tournament, and he said, "Hey, can we issue challenges?" Which is apparently is common with certain tournaments. Like I've seen that with some other YouTubers that have done that have been at the same tournament, and I've seen people call each other out, like at various games. You've had Skaven and AZ calling out Daemonic Orchid and Lord Tremendous. I think that's fantastic. I wanted to do the same thing, and Anthony completely obliged. But we both knew what our lists were. They were the lists that we took to the tournament. We were completely open. All right? We just didn't face each other at the tournament. And I don't want to give away how well either of us did, but I thought it would be cool for us to have kind of a grudge match. He called me out early. We didn't have a challenge opportunity. I was kind of focused on the tournament. So I offered it to him, and he didn't bat an eyelash. He never does. The guy is game for anything. He's not afraid of any game style or any list. So he's more than willing to give it a shot. So I threw it out there, and he said sure. So we met up. And, by turn 3 or so, or I'm not sure if it was turn 3 or 2 and 4, it's pretty obvious where the game was going. So we called it, and we probably would have played a second game if not for the fact that we had evening plans, both of us, with our families. So, he then put up a video, and after we had talked about it, saying that, he didn't find it to be fun to play against Nagash. And, it sounded a lot, I took a little bit of it to heart because we had just played the game. But my comments, the comments that I saw in the video from other people seemed to run on some of the things that he had said. Like, if you brought this list on a consistent basis, pick up games to your local store, then that's uncool, and you're not going to find yourself with lots of opponents. And I agree with that. I don't think that anybody should be doing that. I don't think anybody should be bringing Glotkin just by default, plopping on the table, or Khalfran's Ascended, or trying to play the Demonic Ascended rule. Which is supposed to be scenario based, but I'll play against it. I don't care. Just like Lord T did. I'm more than willing to experiment with these things and see just how good I am, or just see how tough a list is. And trying to see if it'll be a fun game. If it isn't, you stop, you start over, you try something new. It's not that arrogance that I'm better than you and I want to crush you into the ground and I want to stamp on your ashes. I think that it's hard to get the impression of maybe perhaps what is behind that desire, because a lot of people are like that. I'm not. My goal is not to go and stamp out your soul when I play you. And I don't think that somebody like Daemonic Orchid is that way. He talks a lot of smack, and I think it's hysterical hearing him do so. And if I was in a situation where I was playing with a group of people that like to talk smack like that, I'd go back. I grew up like that. I grew up in an environment like that. So I would call out that person in kind and use similar language and similar arrogance. But I'm very careful not to do that because I want to be respectful to my opponent. I want to be respectful to the people I play with at the stores that I frequent within the North Jersey area. And if I ever do travel, I'm going to be respectful to those people. If somebody were to call me out online, I'd laugh and I'd entertain that and hopefully find a way to meet up with that person. But I try to have some dignity when within the game. But when it comes to a list, if I'm playing somebody who's playing hardcore, I'm going to play hardcore too. And I don't think I should have to apologize for it. And I don't think anybody should be calling me a douche for that. Okay? I think it's a completely viable method to put Crypt Horrors in front of Nagash and catch cannonball fire. People do it all the time. You don't do it. You don't like it. It's your play style. I don't have any judgment against it, but it's a smart way of playing. Just the same way that you put a unit behind a fence. You want to get that extra benefit if somebody charges you, the -1 to hit. Or maybe that's going to catch some cannon fire. It's a smart way to play the game. It's not cheesy. It's not douchey. And it's certainly not something that you should be judging. All right? I'm playing within the rules, and I'm not even stretching the rules. And I don't think that it's even close to stretching the rules. There are plenty of rules lawyers and people that go with rules as written that push the envelope beyond what I think is appropriate. People who adhere to, I don't want to call people out certainly, but there's people who use the old books and lack of their compatibility with the current books to try and justify, like things like with Skaven, that their spells don't have types, so they can get away with certain things when they clearly have similarities to, and are associated with certain types of spells. But they use that as a crutch to go and say, well, it doesn't apply to my spell because it doesn't have, say it in bold letters that it's a magic missile or if it's a hex. And that's just one example. I don't want to go rip on Skaven players, but it's an old book. We all know that, so it's going to have some issues with compatibility. But there's a lot of these types of rules, like people who are crying about the undead legions and whether or not you could take the magic items from each specific book. It's nonsense. But those same people are willing to give every magic items from their individual books when they do Chaos Legions, and then they'll also give gifts to everybody and use demonic bonuses, the demonic powers. That's not what GW intended, and it's ludicrous. But somebody's going to point out that one line that they think is a conflict with somebody else, and try to diminish something that they don't play because they're threatened by it, because they're threatened by a change in the meta, or they're just something that they think is going to threaten how they play the game or their dominance with what they've played. I think that's silly. It's the same thing with what's going on with the new Kane book, but I'll get to that. But let's go back to the unfun stuff. Look, Ant didn't enjoy the game when things turned against him, and he decided to call it. And I agreed. It was turn 3 or 4, and I felt bad. I was hoping that we had the time to go and start a new game. We didn't. But he made a point himself that he used to play the Demon Prince, and he called it the Demon Syndrome. It was like Demon Syndrome 2.0 with Nagash, and I respect that. He used to play Chaos and play a hardcore list, and he ripped face. He smashed people with it. He was very good at it, and I saw a lot of his videos on that, and I've seen a lot of people that play that style. But the idea is that somebody bringing a Demon Prince with all that power. If Nagash is not there, if it's pre-end times, it's the same kind of a situation. Somebody went and took a powerful maximum list, and what do you think they did with that character? You think they hid that behind, for at least a couple of turns, behind a building, behind a tree line? Behind, maybe they don't get the cover benefits because they're large target offenses. But you don't think they're going to hide it behind a wall or a fence in case cannons come to try and ruin the day of their Demon Prince? Come on, of course they're going to, because that's a smart way to play. And if you choose not to play it, that's fine. All right. So, but it should be, yes, it should be fun on both sides of the table. It's a very important issue. That's why you have a conversation with your opponents. You can't do that at a tournament. You can't do that when you're when there's an array of rules within a tournament, and you're signing up to join in on that tournament. And it could be restrictions you don't like heavy comp, or it could be something like a wide open open the floodgates. Either way, if you know what the rules are, and you know that Nagash is going to be there, and Karl Franz is going to be there, and Glotkin's going to be there, well, you better be prepared for that. You better have an answer to that, because you're putting yourself in that situation. And if you're going to make judgments on whether or not that's being a douche, I don't think that's being a douche. I think that's playing the game in a tournament situation where everybody knows they want to win, and they're going to try to win. All right, and try to have fun doing it. Try to have a personality doing it. If something doesn't go your way, laugh. In the first turn of my first game, when the Lizardman player popped the staff of Nagash, I laughed. I thought it was the most hysterical thing, and I commended him for it. I thought it was so ironic, and it was probably the worst item that he could have done that to me. I wouldn't mind losing the sword. What does it give me? What, a +1 strength, a couple of die, whatever, on wounds? But the staff of Nagash allowed me to store 4 dice, and that was really what. I was going up against 2 Slan. Guess what? And a Skink Priest. You know what? I just rolled with it, and I laughed about it, and I put it in the battle report. That's not being a douche either. What is he? Maybe he shouldn't have done that. Maybe that was a little too powerful, popping somebody's magical items. Come on, Dwellers Below. Is anybody complaining about somebody using Dwellers Below or the transformation, the one that turns everybody to gold? I mean, these are automatic instant kill spells that can completely change the course of the game. Purple Sun being one of them also. They're used because they're effective. You don't like to use it, that's your choice. Doesn't make me a douche. All right? Doesn't make people that like me a douche. And I think that most people who play the game play hard. All right, some people don't. Maybe some people just don't like, would prefer the storyline method or the I don't know. I don't say in a derogatory manner, but they don't like the Care Bear way. Okay, fine. That's the way they like to play. There are plenty of times where I just like to play a funny, goofy, wacky army, and I enjoy playing against those types of armies, and I have a lot of fun doing it. Then there's the times where I like to play hardcore. Don't judge me or judge people like me, because I think there's more people like that getting into this and getting into this hobby that want to try to win. They want to have fun winning or losing, but they want to try to win, and that's where this controversy also goes to the next stage. Things like the dwarf gun line. People bitched about the dwarf gun line for years. People bitch still about the dwarf. They were bitching about it when I was playing back in the 90s. All right, people were bitching about it. And I'm talking about early 90s. Okay, they would just stand and just shoot. I've heard Anthony complain that that's not fun to play against, and now he plays dwarves. Although I respect that he plays a more diverse type of a dwarf army. People have been complaining forever about the avoidance list that the Wood Elves bring. It's not fun. You know what? You line up against it, you got to expect you're probably going to fight it. All right, this is just another element of Warhammer, and if everybody is entitled to their opinion, and if you don't like it, don't play it. Don't play against it. It's not necessary to make those types of judgment calls. As far as somebody taking Nagash every week, who does that? Who's pulling a special character out of their bag every week and going around and challenging people with it or imposing it upon everybody? And if they do, if Johnny's kicking Billy's butt and Billy suddenly takes 6 or 8 war machines and shoots down Nagash in turn 1, well, the guy who played Nagash deserves it and should expect it and should laugh about it. And I would have done so because I was making jokes about it before the tournament started and said, I fully expect that somebody's going to be giving me cannons to the face. I said it on the video that Anthony put up with me and Lord Tremendous when they said, what does Nagash bring to the table? You know what my answer was? A massive magnet for every cannonball on the field. Of course, you got to expect that's going to happen, and it's going to happen if you're playing just a demon prince. It's going to happen if you're playing a vampire on a zombie dragon. It's going to happen if you're playing Karl Franz Ascended or Karl Franz before he became a superhero. Is it Warhammer or isn't it Warhammer? Look, it says Warhammer on the box. It says Warhammer on the rules. Does it feel like authentic Warhammer or Warhammer that everybody's come to be comfortable with? No, it isn't. It's different. End Times is a different animal. End Times is a different story, and I understand that. Excuse me. End Times is changing a lot of things, and we're all going to have to either join and go and enjoy the ride, or step out of it and play without those rules. They're optional. It says it in the new Kane book. Play this if you wish. I don't see what the controversy is. William, you said that it was stupid that they should even include that if they're going to include all those other options. I think they gave people tiers of what they think that this should include in different settings of play. I don't have the book. I'm going by what you said, and thank you for posting up some of the additional details because they were much deeper than what I had seen previously when I first broke some information about the Kane rules. But, I think all this stuff is optional. I think that we come together as a community and have an understanding about what the rules are, and we try to do that in organized play as well as in local play and casual play. But you can also play Basement Hammer. Play as you wish. Play how you like. Change the rules. GW says it all the time. They say that, that this is not a holy scripture. Play and change if you wish. And I think that they were trying to say that in Kane. I just think that they're really terrible about how they go about it, and their proofreading. And I don't give them a pass on that. They're a big company with lots of money. They're public. They should have more proofreaders, and they should have more people going through this with better quality control. I put it on them that they have a clunky rule system and a clunky set of books that give so much a wide range of interpretation that it allows people who wish to go in there and nitpick every little line and rules lawyer and have the argument of rules as written as rule and as intended. But here we are. If it sucked that much, we wouldn't play, and if we didn't like it, we'd go play something else. All right. But getting back to the comment that I made, dwarven gun lines. Do people love playing against it? No, they know exactly what's going to happen. It's boring. They're going to sit back and shoot. Okay, that's not fun. All right, that was the argument of pre-End Times. Dwarven gun lines, avoidance lists for Wood Elves. There's other stuff too. So I don't really see where that topic comes up. But earlier today, Anthony made a good point on one of these videos. I think it might have been Daemonic Orchid's video. And he said, you know what, if they do allow Nagash and Karl Franz Ascended and Glottkin and other superheroes of the end times, the Avatar of Cain, if they allow them and they don't comp them, then this is what's going to happen. And this is something I wanted to include because I think this is a really good point. And it's his point, so I'm just repeating it. And I didn't really think about this. And it's that, hey, you're going to see somebody, if that's allowed, practicing on all the local games in that person's local scene at the local store to prepare for the GT. And then when they go to the GT, I think that's going to be the only person that's going to do it. It's going to be 10, 15, 20% of the people that are going to bring that crazy uber super character, not just Nagash, any of them. And that's a good point. I see that. I personally think that that we should allow that to happen. But I do agree that if it becomes more commonplace, it diminishes the impression, and certainly it's not appropriate with the fluff, the same way as that every Skaven list has a Fellblade, and every High Elf list has a Banner of the World Dragon. But yeah, I wouldn't want to see every single solitary Undead Legions list have Nagash. It would be nice to see some variety. And every Chaos Legions list shouldn't have Glottkin. Every Empire list shouldn't have Karl Franz Ascended. I get that, and that's a good point. And if they do open the floodgates on that, we're probably going to see that. And then what that means is that these guys are on the table far, far more than they need to be. My feeling is they should be up on a shelf to come out when people know that they're there, so they can bring their own, when they're agreeing that they would like to play against it and with their own super heavyweight character, and when you are expecting it. If you go to a tournament and people are allowing these guys, you've got to know that that's happening, and you better prepare for it, otherwise one of your games is going to be a tough game. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that, but I do see that it could be oversaturated, and I think maybe that's what Anthony's point was, that there should be moderation, there should be some limits in terms of the frequency that we see that. Now, I have played him, Nagash I'm speaking of course, I have played with him for the better part of the last week. I built him up the week prior, started painting him, been adding my progress after my long effort converting him up, and putting him together. And I wasn't even going to do that. I didn't think I was going to even touch him before the end of the year. But a tournament came up in the local scene, and they were allowing all the end time stuff, certainly the 50% rules, and made it known that these characters were all allowed. And I was like, okay, you know what? Let me see if I can go get him built in enough time to bring him down there. Probably be the only time I'll ever get to play him, or one of the few times. So I got a bunch of games in. I got one prep game prior that I didn't film, and he's not up on my channel. And then I got 3 games in the one-day tournament, and then 1 game afterwards. That's pretty much going to be it. The next time I bring him out, I have a friend who plays Chaos, is going to be playing Chaos Legions, and he's got Glottkin that he's building up. He might have the Blight Kings and all the other Glottkin guys, and we'll probably have a battle royale. And believe it, I'll be pulling out Nagash and all the dirty stuff for that one, because we're both agreeing to it. That's how you do it. I will not, and I don't recommend anybody ever bring out that kind of list just ad hoc or off the cuff. But I also feel that you've got to start realizing that your play style is your choice. It's a matter of choice. Who are you to go and impose and use name callings on people who do that? Douche, prick, dick, all these things I'm hearing of the descriptions of people who play, use tactics that are completely legal. You don't think that an undead or a chaos or any of the evil-ish Orders of Destruction armies would say, this is a bunch of fodder. I'm going to put this guy in front of me. You think Nagash is a warrior? Nagash may be arrogant, but he's not stupid. He didn't become the ultimate necromancer because he's stupid. I think he would wade in because he could handle most stuff, but I think he'd be happy sending out waves of expendable minions, shielding himself with plenty of expendable minions before he goes and puts himself in danger, especially against something that was as absolutely devastating as maybe cannon fire. He knows that he's got to know that that's going to be something that's going to drop him. Why is it different for him to do it and not for any other character on a mount or that's out there that can't really hide easily from cannon fire or spells or whatnot? I think that's silly. Play how you want to. Play as hard as you want to. Just make sure that the people you're playing with are of like mind, and everybody will be happy. All right? And if the game turns out to not be fun, stop and start over. But stop at the name calling, because even though you say you're not name calling, you kind of are when you do it. Because what you're doing is you're referencing specific situations in specific conversations and specific battle reports, and then saying that that's a douche move. And guess what, Mitt? It's not that hard to connect those dots. And I know you don't mean it in a mean way, all right? I know you don't mean to say it in that way. But that's kind of how you're saying it. So, give me that, because I don't think it's very nice. And you seem like a much nicer guy than that. So, hey, look, anybody who is lining up 8 War Machines against Nagash, happy shooting, okay? And anybody who's bringing Nagash, hold on to your pants and be ready for that cannon fire. That's just something that you're going to have to accept. All right. Otherwise, don't bring that stuff to the table, and then have fun. Okay. That's my points. I know I kind of went way over what I probably expected in this. If you stayed to this point, you get a cookie. Hey, everybody, have a great day.